Line-by-line explanation of the IELTS passage with simple vocabulary meanings for beginners. What destroyed the civilization of Easter Island? Quote, paragraph A. Easter Island, or Rapa Nui as it is known locally, is home to several hundred ancient human statues, the moai. Meaning, Easter Island, called Rapa Nui by local people, has many old statues made by humans called moai. Vocabulary. Ancient equals very old. Statues equals shapes of people or things made from stone. Moai equals the big stone heads on Easter Island. After this remote Pacific island was settled by the Polynesians, it remained isolated for centuries. Meaning, Polynesia came to live on this faraway island. They lived alone for hundreds of years. Vocabulary. Remote equals far away from other places. Settled equals started living in a place. Isolated equals alone. Without contact with others. All the energy and resources that went into the moai, some of which are 10 meters tall and weigh over 7,000 kilos, came from the island itself. Meaning, everything needed to make the moai, some were 10 meters tall and very heavy, came from the island. Vocabulary. Resources equals useful things like wood, stone, food. Weigh equals how heavy something is. Yet when Dutch explorers landed in 1722, they met a Stone Age culture. Meaning, but when Dutch people came in 1722, they found people still living like in the Stone Age. Vocabulary. Dutch equals from the Netherlands. Stone Age equals a very early time when people used stone tools. The moai were carved with stone tools, then transported for many kilometers, without the use of animals or wheels, to massive stone platforms. Meaning, the moai were cut from stone using stone tools, then moved far away without animals or wheels, and placed on big stone bases. Vocabulary. Carved equals cut into shape. Transported equals moved. Massive equals very big. Platforms equals flat surfaces to put something on. The identity of the moai builders was in doubt until well into the 20th century. Meaning, people didn't know for sure who made the moai until the 1900s. Vocabulary. Identity equals who someone is. In doubt equals not certain. Thor Heyerdahl, the Norwegian ethnographer and adventurer, thought the statues had been created by pre-Inca peoples from Peru. Meaning, Thor Heyerdahl, a Norwegian explorer, thought people from Peru made the statues before the Inca times. Vocabulary. Ethnographer equals someone who studies people and cultures. Pre-Inca equals before the Inca civilization. Best-selling Swiss author Erich von Däniken believed they were built by stranded extraterrestrials. Meaning, a famous Swiss writer, Erich von Däniken, believed aliens, from space, made the statues. Vocabulary. Stranded equals stuck. Unable to leave. Extraterrestrials equals aliens. Beings from other planets. Modern science linguistic. Archaeological and genetic evidence has definitively proved the moai builders were Polynesians. But not how they moved their creations. Meaning, modern science, language, archaeology, and DNA shows for sure the builders were Polynesians. But we still don't know how they moved the statues. Vocabulary. Linguistic equals related to language. Archaeological equals related to studying old things. Genetic equals related to DNA. Definitively equals for sure. Local folklore maintains that the statues walked, while researchers have tended to assume the ancestors dragged the statues somehow, using ropes and logs. Meaning, old stories say the statues walked to their place, but scientists think people pulled them with ropes and wooden logs. Vocabulary. Folklore equals old stories passed from generation to generation. Maintains equals says or believes strongly. Assume equals to think something is true without proof. Dragged equals pulled on the ground. Paragraph B. When the Europeans arrived, Rapa Nui was grassland, with only a few scrawny trees. meaning, when Europeans came to the island, it was mostly covered with grass and had only a few thin, weak trees. Vocabulary. Scrawny equals very thin and weak. Grassland equals land covered mostly with grass. In the 1970 and 1980, though, researchers found pollen preserved in lake sediments, which proved the island had been covered in lush palm forests for thousands of years. Meaning, in the 1970 to 80, scientists found pollen in lake mud that showed the island had thick palm forests for thousands of years. Vocabulary. Pollen equals fine powder from flowers. Preserved equals kept safe over time. Sediments equals layers of material. Like mud. Lush equals rich and full of green plants. Only after the Polynesians arrived did those forests disappear. Meaning, the forests disappeared only after the Polynesians came. Vocabulary. Disappear equals go away or vanish. U.S. scientist Jared Diamond believes that the Rapa Nui people, descendants of Polynesian settlers, wrecked their own environment. Meaning, an American scientist, Jared Diamond, thinks the Rapa Nui, Polynesians' descendants, destroyed their own environment. Vocabulary. Descendants equals people from future generations. Wrecked equals badly damaged or destroyed. Environment equals the natural world around them. They had unfortunately settled on an extremely fragile island, dry, cool, and too remote to be properly fertilized by wind-blown volcanic ash. Meaning, they lived on a very delicate island, dry, not warm, and too far away to get healthy volcanic ash in the wind. Vocabulary. Fragile equals easily broken or damaged. Remote equals far away. Fertilized equals made rich or better for growing. When the islanders cleared the forests for firewood and farming, the forests didn't grow back. Meaning, when they cut down trees for fuel and farms, the trees didn't grow again. Vocabulary. Cleared equals cut down or removed. Firewood equals wood used for burning. As trees became scarce and they could no longer construct wooden canoes for fishing, they ate birds. Meaning, as trees became rare, they couldn't build wooden boats for fishing, so they started eating birds. Vocabulary. Scarce equals hard to find. Not enough. Canoes equals small narrow boats. Soil erosion decreased their crop yields. Meaning, the land lost its good soil, and they grew fewer crops. Vocabulary. Soil erosion equals when wind or water removes topsoil. Crop yields equals the amount of food grown. Before Europeans arrived, the Rapa Nui had descended into civil war and cannibalism. He maintains. Meaning, he believes that before Europeans came, the Rapa Nui were fighting each other and even eating humans. Vocabulary. Descended into equals turned into. Civil war equals war between people in the same country. Cannibalism equals eating human flesh. The collapse of their isolated civilization, Diamond writes, is a worst-case scenario for what may lie ahead of us in our own future. Meaning, Diamond says their civilization's fall is a warning of what could happen to us in the future. Vocabulary. Collapse equals complete failure or breakdown. Worst-case scenario equals the worst thing that could happen. Paragraph C. The Moai, he thinks, accelerated the self-destruction. Meaning, he believes the statues helped speed up the destruction. Vocabulary. Accelerated equals made faster. Self-destruction equals causing their own ruin. Diamond interprets them as power displays by rival chieftains who, trapped on a remote little island, lacked other ways of asserting the dominance. Meaning, Diamond thinks the statues were built by competing leaders who had no other way to show their power on the small island. Vocabulary. Interprets equals understands or explains. Rival chieftains equals competing tribal leaders. Asserting dominance equals showing power over others. They competed by building ever bigger figures. Meaning, they tried to outdo each other by making bigger statues. Vocabulary. Competed equals tried to win against others. Diamond thinks they laid the Moai on wooden sledges. hauled over log rails. But that required both a lot of wood and a lot of people. Meaning, Diamond believes they moved the statues on wooden platforms, pulled over logs, which needed lots of trees and people. Vocabulary. Sledges equals flat objects used to carry things. Hauled equals pulled with effort. Rails equals tracks or lines made of logs. To feed the people, even more land had to be cleared. Meaning, they had to cut more land to grow food for the workers. When the wood was gone and civil war began, the islanders began toppling the moai. Meaning, when there was no more wood and fighting started, the people started knocking down the statues. Vocabulary. Toppling equals pushing something over. By the 19th century none were standing. Meaning, by the 1800s, all statues had fallen down. Paragraph D. Archaeologists Terry Hunt of the University of Hawaii and Carl Lipo of California State University agree that Easter Island lost its lush forests and that it was an ecological catastrophe, but they believe the islanders themselves weren't to blame. Meaning, two scientists, Terry Hunt and Carl Lipo, agree that Easter Island lost its thick forests and faced a big environmental disaster, but they don't think the islanders caused it. Vocabulary. Lush equals full, green, and healthy. Ecological catastrophe equals a big disaster in nature. To blame equals responsible for something bad. And the moai certainly weren't. Meaning, and the statues were definitely not the cause. Archaeological excavations indicate that the Rapa Nui went to heroic efforts to protect the resources of their wind-lashed and fertile fields. Meaning, digging at the site shows the islanders tried very hard to take care of their poor quality land. Vocabulary. Excavations equals digging up ancient sites. Heroic efforts equals brave and strong attempts. Resources equals useful things, like land. Food. Wind-lashed equals hit hard by the wind. And fertile equals not good for growing crops. They built thousands of circular stone windbreaks and gardened inside them. And used broken volcanic rocks to keep the soil moist. Meaning, they built round walls of stone to block the wind and grew plants inside them. They also used volcanic rocks to keep the ground wet. Vocabulary. Windbreaks equals walls to stop strong winds. Moist equals slightly wet. In short, Hunt and Lipo argue, the prehistoric Rapa Nui were pioneers of sustainable farming. Meaning, in simple words, they believe the early islanders were leaders in smart, long-term farming. Vocabulary. Prehistoric equals before written history. Pioneers equals the first people to do something. Sustainable farming equals growing food without harming the land. Paragraph E. Hunt and Lipo contend that moai building was an activity that helped keep the peace between islanders. Meaning, they believe that making the statues helped prevent fights among the islanders. Vocabulary. Contend equals say something strongly. Keep the peace equals stop fighting. They also believe that moving the moai required few people and no wood, because they were walked upright. Meaning, they also think the statues didn't need lots of people or wood to move because they were moved standing up. Vocabulary. Upright equals standing straight. On that issue, Hunt and Lipo say, archaeological evidence backs up Rapa Nui folklore. Meaning, they say that scientific evidence supports the old stories of the Rapa Nui people. Vocabulary. Backs up equals supports. Folklore equals traditional stories. Recent experiments indicate that as few as 18 people could, with 3 strong ropes and a bit of practice, easily maneuver a 1,000 kilogram moai replica a few hundred meters. Meaning, tests show that only 18 people with ropes and some training could easily move a statue copy weighing 1,000 kilogram a few hundred meters. Vocabulary. Maneuver equals move skillfully. Replica equals copy. The figure's fat bellies tilted them forward, and a D-shaped base allowed handlers to roll and rock them side to side. Meaning, the statues had big stomachs that leaned them forward, and their rounded bottoms helped people rock them left and right. Vocabulary. Tilted equals leaned at an angle. Handlers equals people who move or guide things. Paragraph F. Moreover, Hunt and Lipo are convinced that the settlers were not wholly responsible for the loss of the island's trees. Meaning, they also believe that the first people on the island didn't completely cause the trees to disappear. Vocabulary. Moreover equals also. Convinced equals sure. Settlers equals people who start living in a new place. Wholly equals completely. Archaeological finds of nuts from the extinct Easter Island palm show tiny grooves made by the teeth of Polynesian rats. Meaning, nuts found by scientists from the old palm trees show small bite marks made by rats. Vocabulary. Extinct equals no longer exists. Grooves equals small cuts or lines. The rats arrived along with the settlers. And in just a few years, Hunt and Lipo calculate, they would have overrun the island. Meaning, the rats came with the people. And within a few years, they had spread all over the island. Vocabulary. Overrun equals take over or spread everywhere. They would have prevented the reseeding of the slow-growing palm trees and thereby doomed Rapa Nui's forest. Even without the settlers' campaign of deforestation. Meaning, the rats ate the seeds, stopping new trees from growing. And this destroyed the forest, even without people cutting trees. Vocabulary. Reseeding equals planting seeds again. Doomed equals ruined or destroyed. Campaign of deforestation equals people cutting down many trees. No doubt the rats ate birds' eggs too. Meaning, the rats also likely ate birds' eggs. Vocabulary. No doubt equals surely or certainly. Hunt and Lipo also see no evidence that Rapa Nui civilization collapsed when the palm forest did. Meaning, they don't believe the civilization ended when the trees were gone. Vocabulary. Collapsed equals broke down or failed. They think its population grew rapidly and then remained more or less stable until the arrival of the Europeans, who introduced deadly diseases to which islanders had no immunity. Meaning, they think the number of people grew fast and stayed about the same until Europeans came and brought diseases the islanders couldn't fight. Vocabulary. Population equals number of people. Stable equals steady or unchanged. Immunity equals natural protection from illness. Then in the 19th century slave traders decimated the population, which shriveled to 111 people by 1877. Meaning, later, in the 1800s, slave traders killed or captured many people, leaving only 111 by the year 1877. Vocabulary. Slave traders equals people who captured and sold others as slaves. Decimated equals killed a large part. Shriveled equals became very small. Paragraph G. Hunt and Lipo's vision, therefore, is one of an island populated by peaceful and ingenious Moai builders and careful stewards of the land, rather than by reckless destroyers ruining their own environment and society. Meaning, Hunt and Lipo imagined the island was full of peaceful, smart statue builders who took care of nature, not careless people who destroyed their land and lives. Vocabulary. Vision equals idea or belief about how things were. Ingenious equals very clever and creative. Stewards equals caretakers or protectors. Reckless equals careless and risky, rather than a case of abject failure. Rapa Nui is an unlikely story of success. They claim. Meaning, they say that instead of being a complete disaster, Easter Island is actually a surprising story of success. Vocabulary. Abject failure equals total and hopeless failure. Unlikely equals surprising or not expected. Whichever is the case, there are surely some valuable lessons which the world at large can learn from the story of Rapa Nui. Meaning, no matter who is right, the world can still learn some important lessons from Easter Island's story. Vocabulary. Valuable lessons equals important things to learn. The world at large equals all people everywhere.